When firefighters face an enormous wildfire, they don't simply pour water on it and hope that it goes out. Instead, they employ a very strategic decision and a course of action. To fight a wildfire, firefighters find small parts of the wildfire that they can isolate and contain from the rest. Eventually, once they're able to contain all these small parts of the wildfire, they can eventually manage to subdue the entire fire and provide safety and protection for all of the citizens who were threatened. This analogy is a perfect example of a principle that we see challenged yet again in today's topic. Today's topic is, do states have the grounds to challenge the Trump data collection policies? Today, to answer this question, we will focus on three main points. Our first point will be the flame, or the small fire that we can isolate here and look at. Our second point will then be the major wildfire confronting American politics in terms of this type of policy. And our third point, we'll talk about how to extinguish this fire. To begin, let's look at this specific incident, this small part of the wildfire, which we can first seek to isolate. So, to begin, let's talk about what these Trump data collection policies are. Specifically, these policies relate to the federal government under President Donald Trump attempting to take voter data about the elections in order to centralize and federalize elections away from the states. This is, in effect, unconstitutional. Article 1 of the Constitution says that states have the authority to choose how the way in which their representatives in the House of Representatives and senators in the Senate will be chosen. And Article 2 of the Constitution says that states will again choose how to send electors, their representatives that they elect within the states, to Washington, D.C. in order to vote on who will become president. So, because states have ultimate authority, this is an unconstitutional action, and states have begun challenging it. The Time magazine reports on April 1st that Trump has said that elections should be, quote, nationalized and, quote, taken over in 2026. He has noted that he wants this to be taken over by the Republican Party in order for elections to run smoothly. It adds that Trump has been trying to take voter data from states, first ordering parts of his administration to write letters to state officials, and second, filing lawsuits in order to obtain certain types of data from the states. The Center for American Progress tells a similar story, saying on March 3rd that a leaked executive order or statement from President Donald Trump shows that President Donald Trump wants to federalize elections. Some of his policy proposals in this executive order are to have all current voters re-register in their voting places to prove that they are legal citizens of the United States, and also proposing that citizens may only vote in person, not through mail-in ballots. Whether or not you approve of these policies, the principle is this. Donald Trump is trying to top down from the presidency and force his views about elections onto the states. This is just a small part of a wildfire engulfing America. A wildfire that both parties have embraced, where they believe that the federalization of elections is a good thing. And this will be our second point today, looking at the overall fire that America faces, where both parties believe that elections must be centralized. Unfortunately, Republicans are not the only party that have discussed this topic. The Democrats have also argued for the same principle. On October 29, 2024, Kamala Harris gave her closing argument speech right before the 2024 election when the votes for president came in. In this speech, she made her closing argument to voters, citing all of the bills that she hoped to pursue while in office as president. One of these bills she mentioned was known as the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act does effectively does effectively the same thing as Trump's proposed executive order in terms of federalizing elections. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act simply federalizes elections with more liberal rules in place, but the principle of federalizing elections is the same. This Voting Rights Act forces states to accept mail-in ballots multiple days after elections have ended and forces them to embrace many other liberal policies, just like Donald Trump's proposal would force states to embrace more conservative policies when it comes to voting. So finally, let's talk about let's get on to our third point, how to extinguish this wildfire. Because like any other wildfire, it must be extinguished. The American founders were very clear in the Constitution that the authority to determine how elections work is up to states, not to the executive. Obviously, that doesn't mean that states can do whatever they want. They must obey what the Constitution says. If states disobey what the Constitution says, they can be sued and taken to court. The principle is that states are the ones with the authority over how their elections run, not the federal government. And because this is the principle, when both parties challenge it, they are not just challenging a general system America has worked on. They are challenging the Constitution itself, the very basis of American government. And when they do this, it is dangerous. It threatens to burn down the American system of government. To extinguish this fire, both parties must recognize that it makes more sense to embrace what Calvin Coolidge called, quote, what former American President Calvin Coolidge called in his 1925 inaugural address, quote, the matchless wisdom enshrined in the Constitution, unquote. By looking at this small isolated incident where Donald Trump has tried to federalize elections, then looking at this broader principle, we've seen that this is a dangerous violation of the Constitution and American system of government. If Americans wish to stop this wildfire, they must embrace the wisdom in the Constitution instead of following partisanship.